Well, hey there, this is Pastor Scott of the Lathrop First Christian Church, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's Midweek Minute. You know, I have a lot of Bibles here, and there's all different translations. We have English Standard Bibles and the NIV, the New International Version, and we have a Good News Bible and the King James, and here in my hand I have a New Living Translation, so all these different Bible translations. And there's positives and minuses to each Bible translation. There's nothing, I will tell you, I don't think there's anything that is a perfect Bible translation that you have to only use this one translation to understand the Bible. Now, I've talked about this before, that Bible translations fall on a scale, and some are more word for word, which is going to be your ESV and your King James Bibles, where they're trying to take the original language and translate it to the English equivalent of that. And then we have more thought for thought translations like this New Living Translation, where they want to keep it a translation. They want to keep the same wording, the same order, the best they can, but they also want it to be more of a thought for thought. So they'll take the sentence or whatever and they'll try to make it to where it's as easily understood as possible. And I'm telling you this week because, one, I know that spaced repetition is a wonderful way to learn, and I've talked about Bible translations in the past, and so this is just another one of those repetitious type moments for you. Thank you, Twyla, for that terminology. And now here we are. I want to read our NLT, the first the Colossians chapter 1 passage we looked at about Christ last week, and I said Colossians chapter 1 verse 15 has caused a lot of issues throughout church history because it says that Jesus is the firstborn over all creation. And that's caused a lot of issues, that people have taken that to mean that Christ, the second person of the Trinity, the Son, was in fact created. And that's not Paul's intent. And so I want us to read it here in Colossians chapter 1 out of the New Living Translation. And like I said, you'll see where they have taken it and made it more of a thought for thought of what Paul meant more than the word for word, because they will not use the word firstborn, even though that is in the original Greek text. And so in verse 15 it says, Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. See, they took that and they understood that dual meaning of firstborn, and they made it very clear that He existed before everything. We're not talking about being created on a timeline, but He does have supremacy over all things. And so it just makes it very clear there in verse 15, even though it's not word for word, it is Paul's thought. But let's continue reading. For through Him, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He made the things we can see and the things we cannot see, such as the thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen world. Now again, here's another place where the NLT does this, because in the word-for-word translation, it does talk about the thrones and kingdoms and rulers and authorities, but that's where it ends. But what the NLT has done is they have added a clarifying three-sentence statement, because in the ancient world, when we talk about that terminology, we're talking about the unseen realms. We're talking about angels. We're talking about demons. We're talking about all those different things. And so here it just adds in the unseen world, just to clarify again exactly what Paul is talking about. Everything was created through Him and for Him. He existed before anything else, and He holds all creation together. Christ is also the head of the church, which is His body. He is the beginning, supreme over all who rise from the dead. Now again, this is another place where most word-for-word translations will say He is the firstborn of the dead. No, they make it very clear. He is the beginning, supreme over all who rise from the dead. He is first in everything. For God is in all His fullness was pleased to live in Christ, and through Him God reconciled everything to Himself. He made peace with everything in heaven and on earth by means of Christ's blood on the cross. And so again, I still usually use the ESV in my studies. But really what I do is I have 4 or 5 different translations of every text that I preach on, every text that I teach on, and I read 4 or 5 different translations as I'm trying to learn and understand the nuances, because I have a decent understanding of Greek. I'm not a scholar in Greek, and I definitely don't even hardly have a decent understanding of Hebrew. And so by reading these different English translations, you're getting the expert opinions from different people, and they word things differently, and so it helps us understand more fully that meaning hidden in the original language that we are not fluent in, or many of us, or most of us, are not fluent in. And so again, my name is Pastor Scott of the Lathrop First Christian Church, and I would encourage you, if you've liked this video, to like it, share it, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get more of this content when it becomes available. And I do pray this message finds you well.